Hey everyone, this is Nathan from lucidnetworker.com. Today we are going to continue our MTA 98-349 Windows Operating System Fundamental video series. This is part 2 of configuring control panel. So let's jump right into it. First, we want to navigate to the administrative tools within the control panel. The best way to do that is by hitting the Windows key and R, and then going to Control Space Panel. From here, we click on Systems and Security. Just make sure your view is on Category. You go to Systems and Security here. And then from here, we want to go to Administrative Tools. Now we'll see all the tools that a Windows desktop will give us for administration. We have about 20 different built-in applications that we can use here. I'm going to go through and explain each one. The first one I want to start with is Component Services. So if we click on this, it will bring up a window here. And this basically is an application that allows you to configure COM components and COM plus applications. I'll be honest with you, you will probably never use this. This is something that's more geared towards application developers. So we're actually going to move on to the next tool. The next one here is Computer Management. You'll definitely need to know this one, so let's go ahead and double click on it here, and it'll bring up the Computer Management window. I'll just kind of close out of these for right now. From here, you're seeing that we have quite a few tools in here. This is going to be a pretty vital location for the different tools. The ones we're going to go over today are actually the task scheduler right now. So the task scheduler, you just click on it here and you actually right click, and from there you can actually create a basic task. And actually let me go back there just real quick. So you saw that there was quite a other options here. There's create basic task, create task, import task, and so on. I'm going to try to go through all of these, but first we're going to start with create basic task. So what you see is you can type in a name, so you give your basic task some sort of name here. You can call it whatever you want. Today we're just going to call this one task 1 and hit next. Next you'll notice that we can actually start a task at a certain time, and we're going to do daily here and hit next. And then the next thing actually tells us we can set a time and if we want it to recur or when we want it to recur. And then after that you see start a program. So this is what the actual makeup of the task scheduler is. It allows you to do a certain action like start a program, send an email, display a message, things like that at a time that you set through the task scheduler. So here I'm going to click on start a program and then hit next. And then this next window pops up that says basically select the program or script, and you can also add additional arguments. We're not going to go over that right now, but we would hit browse, for example, here, and within here I could actually click an application and like Notepad, for example, and open it, and then when I go back to here you'll actually see you would see that path, and then it'll allow you to basically open that program at the date and time you specified back on these first couple windows. So pretty helpful. I mean that's definitely helpful when you want to do something like just start a program on startup that maybe is not available within the typical startup menu within the task manager options. So it can be pretty helpful. So now I want to go over the next part here, which is actually going to instead of basic task, we're going to go to create task. So if you hit create task here, you see this window pop up. You'll see the general tab, triggers, actions, conditions. We'll go over all of those, but what you notice is this is a little bit more in depth, right? We have the name here. It tells me who's the author. There's my name there, and a description that I can add in here like we saw before. But you'll also notice that you can set the specific user you want to run the task, or even the group of users you want to run the task. You can set a parameter to run only when user is logged on. You can set another parameter here about a log on option, and you can also set it to run with the highest privilege. So obviously that's going to allow you to run it as an administrator. You may feel like that's something you want within your task. It may need certain privileges to actually make that task run, so that can be helpful. You can also hide the task, so it's something that's not easily viewable that task is running. There could be many reasons you'd want to do that. And then the next one here that's helpful is you'll see you can configure it for different operating systems. This really only comes into play when you're exporting the task, right? So if you wanted to put it on, let's say you had a Windows 7 machine somewhere else in your house, or at your company, and you want to actually create that task and export it to that computer, and you're using Windows 10 currently. So you could select this, configure it for that, and then actually import that this configuration and send this task over to that computer and then import it there. So I'll move on to triggers here. And triggers is kind of like what we saw before, where it was showing that you could set on login. Yeah, so you could, in other words, you could tell the computer to actually run the application on login. So here, if we hit new, you'll see it says on a schedule, like we saw on the basic options. But you also get a few others. You get on idle, on an event, a task creation modification. I mean, you know, it gets pretty in depth here, and that's what this is all about. This create task panel is just, you know, giving you as much detail as you can possibly have with setting up a task. So that is all pretty helpful. If we go to action, of course the action is what it's actually going to do when it hits that trigger. So let's just say when the person logs on again, you can set you know, start a program, send an email, display a message, just like what we saw before in the previous prompt. And again, you can just browse to whatever application you need. So, well, not last, but second from last here, we actually have conditions. So with conditions, you can start the task if the computer is idle for an amount of time. So that's very similar to the trigger, but you can also say start the task only if computer is on AC power. So if it was a laptop and running on battery, you could say, oh, I don't want it to run on battery, I want it to run when it is only connected to power, which that can also be helpful as well. You can tell it to wake the computer to run the task. So if the computer's asleep, it'll say, okay, I just hit this trigger and I'm going to put this computer, make it back online and operational. Let's see, so you have the network option here, so that's pretty cool. You can also start it only if it has an available connection, and you can actually set it to different network connections your computer has available. So if you wanted to get on hey, when this computer gets on, you know, this network, whether it be Wi-Fi or a LAN connection, you can have it run that task then and only then. Alright, so the next tab here, we have the few options under the settings tab. The first one you see here is allow tasks to be run on demand. What that means is basically anyone that gets in here, has an administrative login, can actually run this task through command prompt if we keep this checked. And then the one after that says run task as soon as possible after a scheduled start is missed. That's pretty self-explanatory. If the task fails, restart every so often. So of course, if the task could fail for many reasons, and maybe you don't want to have to come back and try to run it manually, so you would check that there and then set a parameter of time. And then of course stopping the task if it runs longer than a certain period of time. There's a few reasons you may want to do this, but I would just say only use it really if you know the task is going to run a specific amount of time, because if you select an hour here, for example, and it runs over an hour, of course your task is just going to be canceled automatically, and that's not ideal. The next one after that we have, if the running task does not end when requested, force it to stop. Another one that's pretty self-explanatory. And then, so on. So we have the last one here, if the task is not scheduled to run again, delete it after amount of time. So what you're getting here is you're getting another group of parameters, or almost conditions, that you can set here to stop the task. So we're going to hit cancel here, and we're going to move on and go back and right click Task Scheduler again. And from here you're going to see the option Import Task. So this one kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, where you have the opportunity to actually import a task from another computer. For example, you could move it to this computer, import it here, and you'd have the exact same task on the new computer. So that can be super helpful if you don't have access to the computer to run that task, or maybe even you just want to do remote access to it. And you could do it through something like a command line and import it from there. Of course, below that we have display all running tasks. If you click on that, you'll see a few tasks listed here, but this is where your task would be listed if it was currently running, if we created those and we ran it at a certain time. And this one also gives us the option to just straight up end that task. Alright, so moving right along, if you get back to the main panel here again and right click, you'll see all task history. So I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Basically you can enable all task history, and that allow you to see all tasks you've ever ran and keep a log of them. AT service account configuration is just the default account you'll be running tasks with. So instead of the system account, you could set another user on your computer to run all the tasks through. And that's pretty much it for Task Scheduler here. I appreciate you stopping in. This is Nathan from lucidnetworker.com. In the next episode, we will move on to the event viewer. If you like this video, please leave the video a like, and I will catch you in the next episode.